Jeez.
There we go. We are live.
Did it.
This is super cool. Hey, I'm excited for this one because we got Adam Loveridge. Is that how you say your last name, Loveridge or
Perfect.
Loveridge?
Nailed it.
Loveridge. Nope. Okay, good. That's awesome. And with us today, I'm really excited to share because he's got some experience and what we're doing and with the live streaming. My name is Ben Reeder, and my co-host today is Andy Cooley. I'm a professional photographer. Andy's our sound engineer and video engineer, live streamer. So he's got that fancy look on his cameras and all that kind of stuff. But today we got Adam, and Adam's with Loveridge Photo and Film. So we were kind of talking a little off camera. Why don't you tee it up and tell us a little about you to begin with?
Yeah, thanks. This is really fun. I think with the pandemic and everything, folks are whatever. I miss being a part of a community. So getting to do this kind of thing is really meaningful for me. I appreciate it. My wife started a wedding photography business 7, 8, maybe almost 9 years ago, maybe 10, shoot. But I second shot with her for a while. We've got a couple kiddos now though. And so at some point it just became cheaper to like have me stay than pay for somebody else to do that. But I had a little bit of a background in, just playing around with videos and was working a different job at the time. But then when that ended, decided why aren't, it felt like it was obvious and right in front of us that, hey, we could do this business together where she does photo and I do video. And that's a little bit of a niche market there for like, hey, your video and photo people will be together. And so we've kind of marketed as that. And I kind of started a little bit part-time, slowly letting go of the other job and then doing this. And then the goal was to go full-time, but that was right before the pandemic. So I'd had a number of videos under my belt and was basically ready to like, okay, let's jump into this. And was ready. And then, the pandemic, and we had couples, hey, we need to postpone. Like I'm sure tons of people in the industry, or they just switched to, well, we don't know what to do. A lot of those couples, I think, have figured out, well, instead of our 300-person, 200-person wedding, we're going to drop it down to 20 or 15 or less. Yeah. But we want people to have a live experience. And so exactly with Zoom going all over the place, with people having to do it for school, like I think all of the barriers that were there from, can grandma figure it out? Will it be okay to get other folks on there? It just, people figured it out for other reasons. So I had a friend who was starting to work at one of the churches in the area, and the pandemic hit like 2 or 3 weeks after he started. And so I had all this video equipment and audio stuff and was like, let's figure out how to do it. And then eventually a couple months of that, the light bulb went off of like, why am I not doing this for wedding videos?
That's great.
So, and there's the area that I'm at, kind of in Central California on the coast. And so you have a lot of folks from like the Bay Area and a lot of folks from LA that kind of come to this wine country in the middle. So there's a ton of weddings happening all around. And there's only a few of us in the area that are doing live streaming where it's, where it's a little bit more, we're doing multicam type stuff. And there's plenty of work to go around. And it's a great community of wedding folks, vendors, planners, lots of folks, florists and whatnot, who all refer to each other. And there's just enough to go around that there's not there's an abundance. So there's not like any kind of, too much competition in the sense of, we got to protect your territory or anything like that. So we're really lucky to have that. And it was a perfect kind of setting for me to try to figure out how we do this.
So you mentioned off before we started, you've done like close to 30 now since last year already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So 30 weddings. And so tell me a little about your setup first off, and maybe how you evolved even with your setup. Yeah.
Initially, the big question for me was always, how can I do more than like one angle? Like, is there hardware? Like, because when everything first started, it was like, and I even with this church setup started with one of those, I think ATEM or who was it? There's some, it's been the gamers, right? Who have had to, when they're on their Twitch streams and all this other stuff. So all of that equipment I started looking into. And and was just, the price point was right around $200-300 for what seemed like a really good one. And then I think I probably stumbled on it like right as it was being announced, when Blackmagic announced their like ATEM Mini, that Mini and then the Mini Pro. And so like the Mini was, here's like a 4-camera option for just like $100 more than what I was finding for a single camera. And in there was a little bit of a progression at some point from me thinking about how can this work for a church service to then like a wedding, but all along it was like, well, 2's better than 1. It was, and then like, well, if you got 3, 4 might be too much to handle, but there might be some other excess. So anyway, in that process,
wait, you're saying that comes as a set? You had bought some kind of set of cameras, or how'd that work?
Right.
No, I'm not familiar with the product at all.
No, totally. So I actually have it right here. I'll show you real quick. But the sorry for the extra fun noises, but so initially with the friend, we actually started using my cameras. So I think at the time I had 2 cameras, 2 Sony cameras, mirrorless ones that I used for wedding stuff. One was just a backup, and one I would have on the side, where I think when I first had started, I wasn't even doing like, here's a full ceremony. It was something smaller, but eventually I had 3 cameras for that. So we were using my stuff at this church, and then they wanted to get some of their own equipment. So we ended up buying some just really simple $250 like old Canon cameras that you can zoom and look fine, 1080, they'll stream great. Yep. So I ended up with this guy. Folks are familiar with it. Little ATEM. There's so many buttons. You don't really need access, but the important part is you have four HDMI inputs.
I see that.
There's a out, so you can see all of them on a program view. This is the Pro version, which comes with its own encoder. So if you are at a spot where you can plug into Ethernet, or if you have a fancier setup than I do, that with some of those aggregation or bonding technology stuff, you can Ethernet into those. So this did it all. So it didn't matter like whether they come in at, your one camera could be set at 4K, one could be set at 1080. Not that you would want to do that, but it's like it was scaling and doing all this stuff that before this thing, really, you're looking at thousands of dollars worth of equipment to get that. And with this, it's like, you push the button and it'll fade from angle 1 to 2 or whatever you want.
That's nice.
So that's I ended up initially with weddings, I was doing 2 camera angles, and I'd have kind of one in the middle, and then I would just find out which side the bride was going to be on. And that seemed to be like, that's what people want to see. People want to see, or the bride wants to see her giving the vows. And then eventually it was like, well, of course I need a 3rd camera. And so, bride giving her vows, groom giving his vows, a wide shot, the kiss, walking in, walking out. And if you can do that, and it's fairly simple. And I will say too, like, the benefit right now, I think, of the kind of ubiquity or the ubiquitousness, I don't know, whatever, but of everybody knowing Zoom, everybody knowing some kind of video platform for live stream stuff, whether it's church or school or whatever, is that their experiences is pretty crappy, I would say. Like the quality is so low that the bar is fairly low. Like I think we can deliver a great product, but people are so happy with, and whereas when I'm coming more from the video side, I'm like, okay, but you could have 4K, you could have whatever. But for a live event experience, people know like, well, it's not going to be like that. I appreciate that the community or, the public kind of in general knows like, okay, that's going to be different than, we're not broadcasting from, whatever TV station.
But funny you say that, because Andy and I work together a lot, and he's always like, we can do this and we can put all this, we can do 10 cameras and high definition, everything. Like, pump the brakes. Yeah. We're only paying for this. Right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to that package.
There definitely is a difference between like the enthusiasm or what a customer might expect and like my own excitement, or like you're saying, for, oh, but it's cool.
He likes all the toys.
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, just
toys. I'm like the dad that doesn't want to spend any money. Like, nope, I'm not spending any money on that.
The thing about this that is like, so they just released a ridiculous version. It's great. That is like 8, I think.
Yeah. It's like doubled up and it does all ISO recordings.
Yeah. So, and that part, I wish like, I don't need 8, but I wish this had, so it has one USB out. So what I do is I go like, just like we're doing here kind of is just USB from this guy into my computer for webcam and then broadcast through OBS free software to Event Live. But if I just did a wedding about two weeks ago, a month ago, that was at a location that I knew ahead of time, the bride and groom knew. There's just no cell reset, like there's no data, there's no internet, there's nothing. It's on a cliff of like the very bottom of Big Sur, the very south end. And so we just were like, well, I can record it. And what I ended up doing is I still use this switcher, but I just, instead of plugging it into the computer, you can plug it into a hard drive. And recorded the thing, and then we just had told people, hey, it's going to start 2 hours after it did, and then
so you're saying that records itself as well?
It can. Now see, that's the thing, is the newer one does both. So you can plug it into the computer, uses a webcam, and have the backup recording. This one doesn't do that, and that's what I wish it would, because currently my setup is I'll just record in camera at the same time. And so if my you know, my contract and whatnot with clients is that hey, if for whatever reason it craps out or it's not good enough, I always have the files on the camera, but then I have to, you know, you have to edit that together, which doesn't take a lot of time, but it's, if this darn thing just had one extra port, you know, and so they of course, they fixed that with the other one, but now it's this massive, and, you know, I don't need 8 angles, but anyway.
That recording feature is actually pretty nice on that ATEM, because I know that if you use it for the ISO recordings, it'll automatically build a Blackmagic project for you. So everything's synchronized and lined up and ready to go.
It's incredible. Yeah. Yeah, and even that's like, right, there's like the pro version that I have. There's the ISO one that'll give you like a recording of each individual file and the Blackmagic. So this one just gives you the program output as a recording, but like that's all I needed. I just would like, it feels to me that we're still not like, there's not like the perfect solution yet, you know, for me. Or maybe it's just because we all have a little bit of different needs slightly, that certain products, I think, do, you know, 80% of the job amazingly well. And there's just that 20%, no matter what your setup is, whether it's ATEM, Slingbox, or Sling Studio, or a few others that I'm aware of that people are using, like, it's so close.
To be honest, that's part of the reasons I love doing this, is I have that curiosity. I have, like, if we found the perfect thing yet, right? Maybe people are listening to this are like, I was really on the fence with buying that particular product, but it had it solves 98% of my problems, and I'll take it, right? Or I really want that extra. I'm willing to buy the next thing or try something else because of that, you know. And you know, I'm curious about that too. I want to try to figure out the next thing for me. So this is cool.
It's a fun game, to like.
So let me ask you about coming out of that unit. How are you tethering to your cameras? You hardwire?
That's great. Right now, I'm set up to do. I have 2 wireless HDMI transmitters. I got lucky and snagged a few of them pretty early on. So Vaxis makes these guys.
Okay.
They're the ATEM, Atmos. Shoot, ATOM, ATOM 500. I think they might even be. They've been doing a bunch of different versions. What I like about it is there's not any, you know, huge antennas. Hollyland makes a few, or I'm not sure how but that they're just a little larger, and they have
antennas make me nervous, because back and stuff, and antennas could easily get bent, or the pins or whatever.
So I have 2 of these. So I run two cameras off of that, the furthest 2 away from me, or usually it's the center camera that I'm going to move around, and then the furthest camera away, and then I hardline. I have a 25 foot HDMI cable that, you know, I can do to the camera that's closest to me, and then I'll run sound through them too. It's nice, they do transmit. I mean, they transmit the whole HDMI signal, so you can do sound with that. Sound was always, that's like the tricky part, super tricky to figure out, in that depending on how you're bringing it in, may or may need to be adjusted for syncing up right with the video. Since video is a bigger file, it goes, you know, quote unquote slower, or it's more data, so sound can get stuck behind, or I mean in front of, because it's going quicker. So there was some early on, some of the weddings where I was like trying to mess with it, and you just see like, oh man, the mouth is moving and the words are coming later, and even then people are, you know, oh, I guess that's fine. But it, you know, you want those to be connected.
Yeah, we get some forgiveness when we do streams. You know, they kind of get some forgiveness. The beauty of the Event Live software is that, you know, I just re-upload it real quick.
Yeah.
I go back in, we
Yep.
upload it, and no one knows the difference. And by the time the bride and groom, they wake up in the morning, they got a whole high res, cleaned up thing. And
it's incredible. It is one of my favorite features. And I've used it both for like on the front end. I've for a few couples, they wanted a slideshow or something, or they'd send me like, I always have them send me, hey, send me some picture of the two of you that you like. It doesn't have to be, maybe you didn't do an engagement shoot, but if you did, send me something that you like. And sometimes they send me 5 or 6. And I'm like, well, I can just throw together a little tiny slideshow, bump that up on there at the beginning. And then, I did have a wedding about 2 months ago where it's like everything when it comes to the live stream, right? It comes down to like your internet connection. Can you do that? I mean, the other equipment absolutely matters, but that's the one link that if something doesn't work, that's it. You can't do this. So it was in Santa Cruz in the mountains, and we knew like the cell service was terrible, but they had found out that the venue had some kind of Wi-Fi. Excuse me. And we had them test it, and it was great. It seemed like it. So everything was, we'll bank on that. And when I got there, I got connected. Awesome. Hit stream, and like it would go for about 30 seconds and then it would stop. Just like nothing. It would cut out. And I was like, I'm connected. What's going on?
That's a hard stopper right there.
Oh man. Yeah. And so I'd, start again, streaming using OBS, send it to Event Live, and it would start again. And it'd go for about 30 seconds and it would cut out. And I never could figure it out exactly what happened. I think I have some guesses about maybe their router setup, or I think it was like a YMCA camp or something. So there was some kind of setting on the router that they just didn't allow that enough stream to come through. Regardless, I went to a cell reception then at that point, which was terrible, but at least something. And then just drove like crazy to get home as safely as possible and threw something together, but had something up before before the dancing was done or whatever. It wasn't too hard. And then when I let them know. They could have been none the wiser, but they and it's great. And it actually, like you said, it was actually a higher quality thing because I wasn't streaming at the moment.
We've done that for just even
so
to kind of
seamless.
shake it a little bit. And we're like, well, might as well throw the original on there. It can't hurt. I mean, it's
and I love there's the feature that I guess I haven't been on the receiving end because I'm just sending stuff through them through Event Live. I'm not watching all the time. I mean, I'll watch it, but when you do that, I think it automatically as well will like
it's a toggle,
right?
It's a toggle. Right?
They let them know.
Notify all the guests. Well, here's a suggestion for you. For all my events, I actually add myself as a guest.
Nice.
So I get all the same notifications that they do. Two reasons. One, to see if there's any errors on it.
Sure.
Just reminders, I guess, anything else. So I'm seeing what they're seeing, understanding it. I usually put the coordinator on the thing too.
Nice. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, that's really smart.
Kind of get it. And it's also kind of a little plug, right? Like the coordinator may not know your name because a lot of times you're just another number for that day. And now she's like, oh, I got this thing. I can go back and watch it later. And, so that's kind of nice. It
is a funny, like, all of my experience up to that point was as a video guy. And in some ways as the video, like you're I don't know if this is arrogant or not, but like you're one of the top tier like vendors, that they're focused on because you spend so much time with the bride and groom all day, and you have such an influence over the schedule when it comes to, well, when do you want to take them away? So then to go to and a few of the weddings where I'm coming in as the live streamer and realizing, oh, I'm not that important, like or like I'm being treated differently. Wait a second. But it's totally fine. But it's like, oh yeah, okay. So now I need to go the extra in some ways to not to get noticed but just to make sure that I'm making the connections. And that's a great idea. I hadn't thought of giving.
You have a bigger setup than say like a normal videographer has to do, right? So videographer can just stick it on a tripod and get your angles. Where you probably need something for the laptop. We don't go that route, but it's not. I saw you.
I've got a table that I bring and I cover for it, so it looks nice, a black one and a white one, depending on what they're kind of planning on. And then I do coordinate with whoever the video person is. And half the time I know them, half the time it's someone who like they don't want to do live stream, and so they've referred to me. But we'll share stuff like, oh hey, I've got dual recording in my cameras. If you want to put one of your SD cards in there, or you can just have mine at the end. That way we don't have 8 cameras. I mean, they of course can get their own angles and they'll do that, but then like, hey, well, here's one more if you want, and we can just share that kind of stuff. And it's and it also helps. I always tell folks, the other vendors, like video person, photographer, like you can feel free to walk in front of my stuff. Like maybe please don't stand right in front of it, but I can always, push a button and switch an angle. Whereas, like I don't want to be worrying about, oh crap, do I have to be behind this guy too? It's like your shot matters. You go ahead. And then that just puts him at ease and we can, work better together.
Yeah, that's always nice. So, okay, talk to me about, we got we got audio coming in. What kind of audios are you using?
Yeah. I've had 3 different kind of iterations, and it kind of depends. I think half of them, about half the ones that I do, it's small enough that they don't have a DJ necessarily. They may just have like cousin whoever pushing play on the sound list, and they have a big Bluetooth speaker. I've seen someone brought one of those really wide like Vizio TV bar things or whatever. Hey, it's like we need power. Other folks actually, have rented something, but still don't have a DJ. So I kind of have my if there's a DJ setup, and then if there's just me, and the common, I overlap a little bit because even if there's a DJ, I'll do some of my own backup. But I mostly use, before I actually got these older Comica Boom XDs. They're basically like, they were the more I don't know if economical is the right choice, but of words. But they were a competitor, at least for the Rode Go mic. Yep. They were about the same price when the first version came out, maybe a little bit more expensive, but they came with 2 transmitters instead of just one, which was great. So I would put one of these on as a lapel mic on the Efficient as a backup, and then one on coming attached, coming out of the main out from the DJ's speaker. And it did a good enough job. Like you wouldn't get any echo. I was really impressed. Like you could have both those 2 signals coming into the same little receiver that's the same size. The problem with these, and I'm sure you've experienced this, they're just they're not the UHF or the they're running on like Wi-Fi kind of 2.4 gigahertz wireless transmission stuff, and so you have to have line of sight, and you put more than 2 bodies, or sometimes if the person they can cut out, so they're not perfect. So what I've done is I've moved my receiver to be as close as possible. So it's like whatever camera is going to be closest to the Efficient. And I now use the Rode Go stuff as well. I get their second version, the Rode Go 2s, because they record into the transmitter itself.
We're a fan of those.
That's insanely amazing. That's a game changer for me. So I've used I kept the Comica ones just to use for a few, to have like a separate source, just as something else I can control. But anyway, for both of them, I go into the receivers in the camera. So if I'm if there's a DJ, I'll come out of the speaker. I have a long enough, if there's a camera close enough to one of the speakers, the literal speaker, I'll just do a XLR out of the back of the speaker and then convert it to a 3.5 millimeter that'll go into the camera, and then I just go directly into the camera, which guarantees the sync, at least if it's going over HDMI, which it does. So it's great. And the latency on the wireless transmitters is unnoticeable. Like you would expect, there might be a little bit of a delay, but they're incredible. You cannot tell the difference. So on occasion, I've also then put, if I'm not hardwiring, I might even use these guys to do 10 feet or something, so I know it's going to be good. And then whatever camera's closest or has the least obstruction between the Efficient and
that makes sense.
I'll put the receiver in that camera and then the transmitter on the.
Have you ever worried about levels at all? Because I know that with that, it's obviously you got one receiver for 2 receivers for 1 transmitter. I say that right? Yeah.
It's 2 transmitters. You can have up to 2, and then they're coming into one box.
One receiver. Okay, I was just saying backwards. Yeah,
that's right.
So have you ever worried about like one pinging too hot or one's not getting enough? Are you even sticking the speaker, stuff like that? What are you doing to combat things like that?
I have so one, I try to get like a decent level, which isn't always easy, like a good test ahead of time. I don't have the little piece of thing with me here, but I ended up buying when it's just going directly onto somebody. It's usually great. Like you can get an okay level. Too. Yeah. So coming out of the speaker, I have had issues. I feel like half the DJs, it's just their equipment is dialed in, and so they're not like blast and gain to the speaker. It's just right. And so and this is where we hit up against my understanding, but I know what's happening is part of what ends up happening is the difference between like mic level and line level. So you can tell us everything about how that works. But so just to, one is, even if you're turning your receiver down, or I mean the transmitter down as much as it goes, the signal is just so powerful that you're going to get garbled. I mean, it's just static. It's peaking. You're not receiving, you're not getting data. You're just getting, so it doesn't matter how low you set something. You're screwed at that point. So I do have, it's called I think it's just called a line attenuator or something. It's just a little XLR adapter. It's female, male on each end, and then you can buy different ones that are set to a permanent thing, but this one has a toggle. It's like 20, 25 bucks that cuts out, 10, 15, 25 decibels from the signal. And basically you're switching from line from line to mic, maybe at that point, if I'm getting the terminology correct, which I may not.
I think that's right. I think that's correct.
Yeah.
One thing
that, go ahead.
Is my experience. So here's what happened to me. I had the groom mic'd up. I had the efficient mic'd up. Then we had this girl who's doing music, and I had an ambient. I just call it fuzzy mic, right?
Yep.
Running to pick that up. But problem was I didn't have them split anyway, right? This was prior to mixer, and all of a sudden the pastor and groom are singing loudly. And that's all I heard was this off key singing, and we lost. It was just this beautiful. This girl was just beautiful woman, beautiful voice. Had nothing like that. So we got, and I think you actually have at the table there a little mixer.
Nice.
Mixer. And this is something we use on the fly.
That's so great.
So we're able to dial that down. So we're using 2 sets of the goes hooked up to that. So we can have up to 4 then, depending on how we arrange it. And then 2 and 2. So you got that, and then some the dB adjustments on either one of those on the fly. But,
well, that's one of the flaws of the Comica ones is they don't, the adjustments for gain are on the transmitter, which is dumb. It shouldn't be.
Wow.
So you can adjust it, but if not once it's on the the efficient, and then they're up there and she's going through the liturgy.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Hold on, I need this.
And you can't, you can mute all or nothing, which is why the Rode is a superior.
Yeah.
These came with like lapel mics. When I was stepping in, I was like, this is only $250. I get 2, it's the whole thing where it was great. But yeah, you get what you pay for. But so there's some limitations. I still use it as like a second set. So like you're saying, I'll put this on like, I just did a wedding where there was a harpist who had her own system, and there wasn't any audio for the pastor or whoever was the officiant, because it was small enough. But so then I just had one setup on there. I did for a while, and I still have sometimes because of the video equipment. I have if folks are interested, you could use something like it's a Zoom H4, I think I have, or maybe I have the H5. But even with the tiny one, you could use that as an attenuator between, either as a separate source, or I was coming out of a speaker going into that can handle a line in volume, and then I would come out of that. It was just such a Mickey Mouse setup of like speaker to my thing that I hope has enough battery, and then from that to a wireless transmitter coming out of the headphone jack, because they could dial in from the headphone. How it was bits and pieces that you learn as you go on the fly. Like, well, shoot, there was a scenario. Now how do we solve that? And then it's 20 weddings before the next time somebody actually has the same issue, but you're ready. And I think, I've tried to tell, and I think the public, or bride and grooms, or folks getting married are getting more savvy in the sense of what they know they need. And the last 3 or 4 clients I've had that have inquired with me, the couple is asked specifically about sound, because as we all know, like in this setup or whatever, your video can be okay, but if you're, and you can tolerate it, but if you're, not that you want it to be that way, but just in general, it's easier to consume not so great video with solid audio. You could have 4K video, perfect 12 angles, and if your audio is crap, then you just cannot watch that. So it's been weird to I'm a video guy, but really the audio matters more. And we got to figure that out, and I don't know that intuitively. So the bits and pieces you pick up to to make it work. Yeah, there are so many tiny little like the dead cat stuff to put on people.
Yeah, we got a box full of stuff too. There's things that don't go in the bag anymore. There's things that, you know.
I just got some new like ones that are like these little fur sticky things you can like go onto skin. I just posted about it recently because like if you watch the video, it's like some German guy describing how it all works and is like, oh, we don't like hairy chests though, or something he said. It's like, in the product video, it's like, oh, but the hairy chests are because, you know, you pull it out. It's like, this is hilarious. But it's, you know, people are going to be hugging beforehand, whatever. Right. And for the live stream, I think too, people are forgiving. It's like, well, of course it's a live stream. They're going to feel some, but you know, because I've had to figure out for video stuff too. But now the live stream's picking up, and it's like, okay, now I need to anyway.
So tell me about. Okay, now we got all that coming in. How do you get into Event Live? What's your kind of your strategy?
The thing I like about Event Live, and I think that one of the strengths is the phone app, like, and that's been a backup for me. So in the case of which stuff isn't working or my connection is terrible, it just because everything's focused through the app, it sometimes works better. And you know, the phones have just such amazing video quality. You still got to figure out how to get the sound in there, which, you know, whatever, a couple adapters, or like that awesome thing you all have there. But so I'll have that as a backup. The downside then, and I know Mark and folks at Event Live have been working on it and they have some great tutorials about how to set up. So I use OBS. I go through open broadcasting system or software. I'm using what I'm on right now, this, you know, 2013, 2015 Mac book, mid 2014. There it is, mid 2014 MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it like OBS works great on it. You know, it's open source, so there's some issues, but in general, I mean, and we're benefiting right from just the pandemic in that sense of like the mass amount of people been using it. That
technology has just come through this.
It's catching up so great. Yeah, the demand is so high. So I go through there. I typically still stream actually at 720p. I've seen a few articles where they just kind of talk about, you know, unless you're above a certain bit rate, it may look cleaner or be undifferentiated, you know, between 720 and 1080. I can stream at 1080, and so if I have a fast enough connection, if I can get above 6 megabits per second, then I'll feel confident doing 1080. But otherwise, I do 720. I'm recording in camera. I think 1080. Sometimes I'll do 4K. But anyway, into the laptop, and then the thing I'm most experimenting with right now is that how do I improve my internet connection? I have two different hotspots that I use, and I got interested in Speedify. We mentioned that at one point.
That's great. I'm a big proponent of that.
It's a really awesome. The downside for me is it's like I either am in a location where I don't need it because I have a good enough connection, or it's such a difficult connection that I still need one or two more sources, and that's not Speedify's fault. That's on me to like get the right.
Yeah, so we're just talking two. You got cell and Wi-Fi. That's it's a balancer for that. It's great. Price point's perfect.
Really cool. I just got there's like, you know, a couple different big hotspot providers out there. The big thing for me was being able to find one that wasn't, because of our kind of somewhat rural location. There are some places I know that are like Verizon is amazing. Other places where AT&T is really great. And I think T-Mobile and Sprint are the same thing now. But anyway, so finding one of there, and there's a number of them out there, but both Skyroam Solus make one, and then Glocal Me is another, kind of two biggest ones that I'm aware of that have hotspots that can connect to any provider, and that you can pay per gigabyte for. And then my phone plan that I have currently does not have like tethering set up, or like they also got wise to like all the demand and like started throttling stuff, dirtbags. I was so upset because it was working flawlessly for so long at the beginning, and then they started dialing it back, and I was like talking to customer support, you know, like, oh no, that's always been like that. I'm like, no, it's not.
Actually, we're both T-Mobile because of that. And we're lucky that we didn't get the next iPhone 12s, because then you get the 5G. If you go to the 5G plan, now they start limiting again. So we're at the LTE for LTE, and it is considered to be unlimited.
That's so great. Yeah.
And then we still have, both of us, we have different hotspots. So
Okay.
I personally have a Verizon. He's got an AT&T,
Nice.
where he just loads what he needs for it, right? So that's kind of nice part.
Well, you have to do that anymore, especially with the other ones. Like everybody wants to sell you an unlimited plan, but in the unlimited, right, in the small print, it's always, well, after the fair use amount, we're going to throttle you like crazy, and they get to determine what it is. So the difficult thing is that most of the plans that I've seen have like one, they're limited in time, right? So you can buy 100 gigabytes, but you have to use it within 30 days. Which again,
I think that's what his is too. Yeah.
It's just another layer to be aware of and monitor. But I just got I haven't used it yet, but I just got the GlocalMe Duo, and it's this little hotspot. But the idea behind it, at least kind of with the Speedify thing, I'm hoping, is it actually has 2 modems. It's not going to aggregate anything or bond any stuff, but supposedly one will work as like kind of as a backup. So it's just another extra layer. And it wasn't, I don't think it was much, 10 or 15 bucks more than their normal one. So I hopped on that. It was under $200. I want to say it was like 140 or 50. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, one of the things about Event Live is because of that bitrate change, right? So you were pretty much, what sounds like you got stagnant shots, right? So you just got set shots. We are what we kind of do. We call our IRL. We're in real life. We're following the action. So it's
nice,
as bride's coming down, everything else, and we're just literally following the actions. One camera setup, right? We're able to zoom in. If it's not good, we're going to get over there and whatever. We'll post up. We even follow the bride out. So at the end of the day, we follow the bride and groom out, and they can talk directly to the camera, right?
I love that. Yeah. So I'll do that with one of my cameras. So I'll have the 2 station left and right, and then 1 station in the middle. But then I'll take that and either have it on a monopod or have it like on a quick release thing that I can pop onto my gimbal.
That's the way to do it.
And used that to like either follow folks or absolutely, like I've been trying to get more, and they like it. Couples like, oh yeah, we can address the group directly.
But when you do that, obviously your bit rate starts going up, right? So
it does,
So kind of past panning, so you see this kind of stop. But luckily, one of the things Mark's, I say Mark for everyone's not listening. He's one of the guys who's a developer of one of the co-owners for Event Live, is working on that. He's helping balance all that out. So he's making sure your stream is better continued. So. You may be struggling with low internet to begin with, and then you're starting to pan. You're, good options. So it's oh my God, it's like helping us out a lot. And I'm feeling more confident, like almost every time now, because of these simple setups. It's not like, we're going to some tricky places. It's.
I feel like almost anymore. My only concern now is my audio going to break up? Because I'm confident that it's going out there, and even if it's not like. The way this whole system is set up, we do have that backup recording.
The in-app back thing is amazing. One time, this is like back in October, my little sister was getting married in Boston, and I'm out here on the West Coast, and I ended up I have a huge setup. I was planning to go out there, but we couldn't travel to do it, so I just sent her the app. Was like, put this app on there, log in under my credentials. I sent them my little audio things at that point. These guys, the little Comica things, we did a trial run. And then what was awesome is because it records into the camera as the backup, I had her send me that file. So it was just my family. We're all in our room over here watching. And then her husband's family watching. And so we were watching on our TV here, but then I was also on my phone recording us watching. And so so she sent me the file, and I was able to kind of put them two together. Like, here's us watching. And I know that's one of the things that I know is a feature. There's a few ways that I've thought about integrating it, it's a funky thing because you don't want what stinks about Zoom is that kind of, you start to get more people on there, and you're just, the limited bit width, bandwidth. The bit rates and bandwidth is, you can't do it.
People not silencing themselves. They're not,
it's a mess.
Can't log on. Oh, that's the worst. I've never had a single person go, oh, my aunt or uncle can't log in. Well, they don't got internet if they can't, because all you gotta do is click that button. That is it.
The only connection issues I've had. somebody one time was like, they couldn't get the password to work, and it's, well, hey, you put, they didn't spell it right, or they they were using capitals where they shouldn't have been, or something like that. Flawless there. And I've seen one setup, and I haven't got to try this yet, but because of that, having that fourth input, I've considered doing where if a couple really wants to have some kind of that, where people can see each other, the guests at least can see each other, is you can run a Zoom call in parallel. Not I don't even have to be on it at the site, but I can be. And so one of the guys that I work with in the area, or that's also a streamer, is one of the things that I know they've been doing is they'll have a separate computer that has the Zoom call on it, and then you can patch that in as one of your angles, or even as like a picture-in-picture. I mean, this is a little crazy complicated, but you can,
I just kind of zoned out when
you
said
fine.
that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, no.
all right.
I'm following this.
Yeah, exactly. Andy's on it. I'm like,
yeah. It's just, there's been a few couples that I know. It's like, oh, we want people to be able to like have some kind of community, right? And it's like, well, that doesn't have to be a part of the ceremony. Like the very first one I did was just me going through Event Live, and it was perfect. And then what was so great for me was that the bride for that wedding sent me, oh, here's all these or maybe I just copied them off her Instagram and asked her if it was okay. But people who had posted and it was here's them watching it on their TV or on their computer, and then next to it was their iPad or something that was I didn't even know what had been happening, but there was a Zoom call that they were all on together at the same time. So it's
cool.
There's options like that don't
in the guest book. The cool guest book that the Event Live has.
Yeah.
Photos and stuff like that.
No, that's true.
I always think that's pretty cool when they do that.
And just be able to give that too, so that kind of like at the end, right? You get here's the file that that anybody can download, and more now I'm getting couples that are hey, let's make that public. So you can that's an option to hey, the file that's there that you can download, that's public now. Anybody that have the link, and then that kind of aggregated or whatever, the automatically compiled guest book for them is a huge deal too. The most recent wedding I did, one of the groom was like, can I want to be able to send thank yous or whatever, and I was like, oh well, yeah, this will be the list.
What to do? Yeah,
this is everybody. And so that it's just such a nice as a vendor to be able to give them that extra thing that I don't have to do any work for.
What are some of your sales pitches you give to couples? What's some of the stuff you say? Hey, look. Here's what Here's what you're getting with me. I'm just curious.
For me, what differentiates me a little bit is, at least in our area, is the fact that I can do multicam stuff. So they know, hey, it's gonna feel like people are gonna be able to see more than just one. And what you guys are doing, I think too, is way more than just. I think at the beginning, folks had an iPhone in the back of the thing that just sat there. And they didn't have any audio. It was just picking up whatever ambient audio was there. And so somebody walking by is 3 times as loud as, and you can't quite pick out. So, excuse me. The multicam thing is something I also will do. I have a package that includes me. I stick around I can do speeches and dancing. And with the dancing thing, I can go around kind of like what you all do. And I'm doing it with the camera, but it's whatever. So it's mostly the...
Do you have Do you have any strategy for downtime? Do you do downtime? So typically, when I stream, I say 3 hours. I'm going 3 hours.
Right.
I'm walking with you. We're catching sometimes. We're doing photos after the fact. I'm doing that. But this last one, it was literally dead. Right.
Yeah.
So we're able to stick it and let it run, and maybe it's just a shot of the reception and people sitting there. Yeah. But one of our last guests had a really cool thing. He was using the sling box, right? And he's like, I'll load up something that's essentially saying we'll be back in a few minutes. We'll be back, right? He's just running a little video that just says, the way we're doing things, we don't have that option right now, but it just sounded great to have that good, nice online experience.
That's one. The way I've worked around that is, especially when I'm doing all day, where hey, there's going to be 3 hours between the end of the ceremony and the dances or the toasts or whatever, or longer sometimes. Or that changes in the middle of the day. Even they're like, we got to go get photos instead, so they shift their schedule. What I have done is, one, I don't think people they're not going to sit there for 3 hours, right? No. So they're checking out too. So I love that the Event Live thing is, if I stop and then start again, it'll notify folks that they've signed up right. Hey, it's happening again. So on OBS, you can set, I'll have some overlays that I'll just drop in there. So at the beginning, it'll say, hey, welcome to the live stream. And,
That's nice.
one of my first couple of weddings, I'd forget to turn that off or something terrible. Like, oh my God, it's in the middle of the vows.
I've been promoting you this entire time. Look at that. There we go. There's our names.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Here we are.
If you didn't know who we were, our names are down there.
So, but now what I've done is I have basically end screens. If it's just the ceremony, it's like, hey, welcome, and I'll take that off before people start walking up. And then at the end, it'll just have like a half the screen. And whatever, there's a little translucency to it. It's just an image file that goes over that's like, nice. Thanks for watching. This is, their name and the date. And so I think I still have like a little reminder on there of like, hey, you can come back and watch this anytime. It'll be on, because they keep it for a year. You can come watch it, blah, blah, blah. Or if it's the whole, hey, at the end of the speeches and all that, it's like, hey, in 24 hours, it's all going to be aggregated. You can watch it again. Although you can do it before
amazing that you can do that like literally the next day.
It is amazing. Oh my gosh. So I'll do that. I've started to do like the most recent one that had where they're going to do speeches and whatnot too. I basically at the end of the ceremony had an overlay that popped up that was like, hey, we'll be back. I'm guessing, it'll fluctuate, of course, but here's when the speeches are going to start. Here's when the dancing is going to start. Here's when cake cutting or whatever it might have been. And then I just had, we'd start 5 minutes before that. Here's a little overlay. Hey, it's dances, and turn it off.
Yeah, that's a great aspect.
I know that like there's a couple, some of the benefits of like YouTube, Facebook, they don't have anything helpful in that regard besides the it's ugly in my mind. And it's, you have all the potential of, the first dance that they're dancing to, well, you can't have that on YouTube or whatever, which is, it makes sense. But so I love that about Event Live because it's a private thing. A few other people use some of the Vimeo. I think their live stream IO or whatever has some pretty cool features, but it's just cost preventative for me. I can't do it. The monthly subscription for that level. And the folks that I know that do use it are, DJs doing sometimes. I just talked to guys like, oh, we have 14 weddings this weekend, and I'm like, well, yeah, if you're doing that kind of level of work, go ahead. You're already paying for this stuff. But for us, I feel like normal people out here, it's such a great cost effective, I immediately jump to for folks that want to use it, right, there's the per event, or you can do like a 10 credit kind of thing. And I was like, yep, I know I'm going to use that. So it's been pretty awesome.
That's awesome, man.
But yeah, that in between time can be tricky. But that's been how I've gotten around it, at least.
Hey, I appreciate this talk, man. This has been great. I know you and I have been going back and forth in emails and we've had a good Facebook group. It's How We Live Stream for those who are interested. Who aren't already a part of that group, please join that group. But I also want to give a plug to your website here.
Oh, sweet, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously. I'm also a photographer. I'm really jealous.
Yeah, you're gonna see my wife's work. It's so incredible.
Your wife is
very
really
talented.
I mean, really talented. So
I get that as like my presentation is like, look at how amazing. None of this has to do with live stream, but she's so good.
So, there's she's a good-looking couple and everything else. Come on, you guys are great. So, and of course, there's a section on live streaming. So, if anyone's interested in that out in that area, I'm sure you'd be willing to talk to them. And
I put on a little COVID weight for that shot. I'm trying to work it up.
Yeah, we get it. It's not, it happens. But so, hey, I just want to thanks for your time and participation in this and anybody who's watching this is going to be available, of course, on YouTube, and we'll put some links into some of these stuff that he's talking about, so we can, anyone's interested in the equipment he's using. But again, all of us here encourage you to try out live. It's liveevent.pro is the website. The service is great. I mean, the people are great who run it, and so we're big fans. But again, thanks for your time, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate just getting to talk. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I know this is a time difference to the two of us, and you're still day. I'm starting to get into night, so it's good.
Hey, we're on the opposite coast, aren't we?
Yeah, we really are. Yeah, we're in Pennsylvania and in Cali. So, So again, hey, thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll go out from there. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
You bet. Yes.